Hi, this is Cindy
And Michael.
and Bella. Oh, she sighed. From Part-Time Permies. And we have a few people in the room already, it looks like. Kiri's in the room from Built on the Rock Homestead. Michael Steele is in the room, and Suburban Hillbilly. I did talk to Tina earlier. I'm not sure if she'll be able to make it today, but she chatted with me earlier because there was some sad news about the Rhodes family that came up today. So, and your mom's in the room.
Hello.
So, mom or grandma? Both. Both. So, yeah, so we have a number of things going here, and hopefully we don't get too interrupted. Somebody is, I think, pretty out right now. So we'll see how well she holds up through this. We do have, you can see our first fire going in our fireplace, and it's pretty warm in here, actually.
It's quite warm.
You can open the curtains if you need to. But anyway, so it was pretty cool outside. We could have started that fire earlier this week. It was colder earlier.
In the last couple of weeks we thought about it, just hadn't been in this room.
Yeah. So so no videos up this week, but when your parents were here helping out, your dad helped with some projects. You had a couple projects going, so I did get some pictures from those. So we'll go through some of that. Do have a couple pictures of little one here if you guys want to see baby pictures. Otherwise, you can always go to Instagram. But I did get a picture of your mom and dad when they were here visiting. And Kara, I will email this to you, but I think that's the better of the two, and I'll probably better of the three, I should say. And I will work with color a little bit more on that. But oh, there was a pudding sighting. She's on the couch. But that's your mom and dad with Bella. And then my mom and dad came up this week to meet Bella. So I have pictures of my mom and my dad all holding Bella. So lots of visitors. We're trying to limit some of the visitors to just family at the moment for the most part, just because she's only 2.5 weeks old. And her immune system's still dependent on me at the moment. So, but it is fall, and there's a lot of fall projects that we have to do, right?
Yep.
So I did get a picture of.
I have no idea when leaves are going to get blown around.
Yeah, we have a bunch of leaves down.
It's not going to be this weekend, obviously. I don't think it's going to be next weekend because I've got a special event on Sunday.
Well, what do we do with those leaves in front?
Well, we blow them into our leaf piles and mulch beds. So we mostly just blow them around about 4 different select tree areas.
Yeah.
So it's not that much work. So if it doesn't get done right away, that's fine. The back last year, I just mowed over it twice to start a pre-mulch and drop them back in the back of the yard. Puddings area, we kind of try and clean that out just so it's easier to see the poo and clean up in the winter. Yeah. But the rest of it, we move it, but not a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, those leaves in front, I mean, the locusts have already dropped all their leaves. The maples are what you're pretty much seeing here.
Really, the locusts still had leaves a couple days ago. They just dropped them in all in 2 days.
Yeah, so this was out earlier today.
Even the oaks dropped like half of them, and last year they waited and
all winter they were dropping.
So I don't know what the difference is, but they dropped them fast.
We had some storms and some good wind storms as well as rain. So so yeah, they've been dropping like crazy recently. And Michigan Mike is here as well. So, okay, cool. Hello. And Noah's Ark and Tina. Missed you guys coming in. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, it's fall, which means usually we have tons of projects this time of year, which I can't be very involved in at the moment.
Got a lot of it done. We held off on doing things like we didn't get a pig. We don't need one. We have pork in the freezer. We got chickens done a little bit on the early end.
Yeah.
So some of that we cleared out quick.
Yeah. Yeah. So. But your dad helped out with a few projects while he was here too. So we had some repair on the roofing that we needed to do in the winter silky coop area. So he put a couple support beams across the top there. He also, if I can find the picture,
the baby is right around 7 pounds.
Yeah, just under 7 pounds right now. So
She's gonna average a little bit small in weight.
Yeah, average in height or length and little. Let's get back on to us here. Sorry about that. Little bit underweight at the moment. We're working on bringing the weight up, but not too much, just a little bit. But yeah, which means
Rose is here.
oh, hi, Rose. So you guys have to Rose, that sounds like a holler intro. Hello, beautiful people. But yeah, you guys will have to check out Rose's channel. I'm assuming sometime this week. So I hear there's good things happening there. But and then of course, anybody else on this stream who has a channel you guys should all check out as well, like Kiri at Built on Rock, and I don't know who else has a channel on here. Suburban Hillbilly.
Suburban Hillbilly, I think. Let's see who else. Who else we got there?
I think that's most of the people have channels, but you can always check them out. Clicking on that little 3 dots on the side of their names will get you to their channel if you want to check them out. But anyway, so bouncing around back and forth. Am I getting any sleep?
Not a lot, at least not long periods.
Not long periods, definitely. A couple hours here, a couple hours there. Because she has to be fed right now every 2 to 3 hours. So I'm on that schedule with her, and she doesn't like being set down. We're working on that one too.
Rose is filming the big news video.
Yes. I did not.
I didn't know
Rose, I did not tell Mike yet.
Yeah, I've been busy. I haven't seen much.
So edit tomorrow. Would that be released tomorrow too, or that releases on Tuesday then? I guess is the question. So you guys have to watch Rose's videos this week. I already know the big news, but you have to watch Rose's videos this week because she definitely has some big news too. So yeah, so big week there. Trying to see if I missed any other questions there. Getting sleep. Harder at night than during the day. So I tried to take naps with Bella during the day. But yeah. Trying to see if there's anything. Okay. Just laughing at what Rose was saying. Okay. Tomorrow night, if you're quick. Awesome. So watch for Rose's video tomorrow night. Okay, Suburban doesn't do videos. I was wondering if you did, because you have a nice name.
Yep.
I was trying to remember. Friday posted a video on garden cleanup. Yes, well, garden cleanup, coming back to gardens.
We've had our chickens in for 5 weeks now, I think.
We've had them in the garden for a while, and they've done a good job of clearing out.
Yeah, main flock's pretty much down to dirt.
Yeah.
Took them a long time. There was a lot to go through. We really kind of need to get them over to the other side one more time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've done a pretty good job.
They've done a good job. We have the silkies on the other side, so we might have to switch the fencing around to let the main flock get into the silky area right now. But yeah, we have, that is the garden clean out. The other thing that was happening with the garden and the chickens is something your dad helped with. He dug, this is the main flock winter run, and we let the bedding sit there all summer to break down, and so your dad dug out all of that about a foot down.
Yeah, so we try and do that. It's a pretty big job. It takes a number of hours. It's just
like a once-a-year job.
Kind of monotonous, and it's not real compacted, but it's still a lot of movement of material. So. And
where do we move it to? We put it in the garden. So all that material goes into the garden. We also do leaf compost a lot of times in the garden. We didn't do that one last year because we mulched it in place in the back, but we
may blow some of it in there this year. We'll see.
Yeah. Your dad also worked on digging out doors of the coop, which you can hardly see in the picture because there's so many leaves down. But
the chickens keep tracking stuff out, so the dirt gets all the way up to the door level, and then when the water and ice come in.
When the snow and ice come in.
Snow and ice, we've got it. So keeping it down a little bit lower is helpful.
Yeah. So we did have a lot of stuff going on there. The other project that you did was closing up the greenhouse, which we mentioned last week.
Did that a couple weeks ago. It's all the way closed, other than there's one little gap up
in that
the
right
corner, which we sometimes leave open when it's hot.
Yeah.
Probably need to close it up, but we just haven't
done it yet. Shouldn't take too long to do
Yeah, it just
that.
needs to be clipped down.
Yeah. And then inside the greenhouse, we still have quite a few plants going. A lot, mainly peppers. A lot of peppers still going in there, even though it's getting down into the 30s outside. It's been warm enough in there for them to keep producing peppers. We have a couple figs that the leaves are starting to turn on, so they'll lose their leaves soon. We moved something from the greenhouse into the house, which was kind of more of an experiment than anything. We planted an avocado pit. Don't ask me why we're planting in Michigan in avocado pits, but
the kids always did it, but it seems like you kind of let them start, and then people kind of toss them. They put them in the water and whatever. But
yeah, they grow very
easily. This one ended up in the soil, and it's doing pretty good. Of course, they won't yield an avocado like it's like other fruit trees, 5 to 10 years, I think, before you get any form. Well, like 5 years before you get anything, I think, and more like closer to 10 before you get anything worthwhile.
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, we are definitely not in the zone for avocados.
Yeah, and we don't have a 15-foot ceiling to keep it indoors.
Yeah, no. So I'm not sure what we're going to do with that. It's actually in a tiny pot, considering how tall it is right now. Are we going to do water catchment on our greenhouse?
We haven't. There isn't that much pressure for us to do it. We get a fair amount of rain, but we're on a well. Yeah. And we have basically sand filtered water flowing back to Lake Michigan. So we have as much water as we need. Yes, there is a little electricity involved, but we can pump as much as we want. It goes right back down through the sand and back to where it came from. So we don't have a lot of pressure like some areas for water.
In the summer, we had the greenhouse pretty much open, so we didn't really have to water it during the summer because the top was completely vented out, so the top was completely open. But yeah, that is something to always consider. Also, we get pretty cold in the winter, so sometimes we're still below freezing even in the greenhouse in the winter. So we'd have to see about how to do that. So we've just been hand watering.
Ellie's been 6-week-old, been nursing a lot, trying to keep weight on the baby, and watched almost all of the videos while nursing. So Cindy has been watching a lot of
I've been watching videos.
YouTube videos, I've noticed. Well,
it's the one hands-free thing that you could do to keep your mind occupied.
She's kind of camped out in the back room for the most part.
Yeah, while nursing and pumping also, because we are trying to give her extra as well, just to try to get her weight back up a little bit. But yeah, so. Oh yeah, yes, Rose. We're using OBS, so I played with that. That I didn't always have that little frame around it.
I don't remember that always being there.
It's been there for
quite a while.
But yeah, once I figured out how to do that. But yeah, you can play with OBS on the screens and stuff. And you can also do the countdown, which I have at the beginning of, which right now will not. Basically, this screen that runs through the pictures and. It says starting momentarily because the countdown's already finished. But yeah, you can do fun things like that on OBS. But so that's the software we use for this live streaming, so we can put in all these pictures and stuff too. I'm not great at using it, but yeah.
Yeah, the downspout actually goes down one of the supporting pillars to the.
We could catch it from that downspout.
We could, and it actually goes into a in-ground pipe to nowhere. So it's
so it's basically going back into our well.
We could grab it there if we wanted to.
I mean, that's something we can play with. The other thing I was thinking about playing with, which again, just with the baby, no time right now. But inside the greenhouse, because it still gets close to freezing, we'll check temperatures this year because I think we're more insulated.
We double coated the whole thing. I haven't seen the temps going up that much, but we also haven't hit really cold temps. So I think we have a little better. We're gonna hold. Well, we still that one panel open at the top.
Yes.
I think we will retain more heat.
So what he's talking about is this plastic is actually a double sheet of plastic, one inside the post, one outside the post. Last year we only had that part of the way up as double.
We did 10 feet up, but the top, which is where your heat rises, was a single sheet. and we also covered some eaves where there's some air vents that could also actually vent heat even
Yeah.
further up through the rafters and out.
So
So yes, those are both more covered this year. So we're going to see
see
if
what the
it
temps are.
changes. Our biggest thing is we could get 20 to 30-degree rise on a sunny day, and
Yeah.
once the leaves are down, we'll get that. In fact, almost too much.
Yeah.
But we would lose it quite quick on a shady day or at night. So the question is, can we don't need any more heat, but can we keep a little more of it in?
Yeah. So so we'll see where that goes. But another idea I had that we might see about trying is could even put cold frames in the greenhouse to grow some greens and stuff and have that right outside the door in the winter. Um, we haven't started anything. You could grow greens in there right now, but if you had like a set of cold frames we have a bunch of old windows, so pretty easy setup that it's an extra layer of insulation
Yeah, I'm
down
not
low.
sure after going through 2 layers of 4 and 5 mil plastic that are not they're not specific greenhouse plastic. They're
Yeah.
just traditional. So they shield out a lot of light, and then going into a cold frame and dealing with all the different angles.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much light you'd actually end up with in the cold frame, but definitely heating degrees I think
Yeah.
would be limited. Getting enough sunlight to grow, I don't know.
So yeah, rows, we do have a air pocket between the two sheets that's
Hmm.
about an inch. It's the width of the posts. So we have the
So it's 3/4 of an
3/4
inch
of
to
an
an
inch.
inch. Yeah, just we don't have spacers beyond the electrical conduit.
Yeah.
And yeah, a typical greenhouse you should get 10 to 20 degrees easily.
We were doing that on sunny days.
We're getting 30 degrees on a
Yeah,
sunny
yeah,
day.
yeah. In the winter, we're getting 30 degrees out up above outdoor temperature. Now, part of that is also this is on the south side of our house. So if you look at that, we have a big picture window that looks into this greenhouse at this point. It would have looked at our front window, but you also get the heat from the house in the winter that's probably seeping through that window into the greenhouse as well as the sun shining in there. So that 30 plus degrees when it's sunny outside was last year's setup, and this year we might have a little bit more. We will have to
Yeah.
watch the high
In
temperatures.
fact, we crack the windows into the house
Yeah.
sometimes. In the winter now, because you get a lot of humidity in there, but in the winter it's dry in here, so it's not a big deal if we push a little humidity back into the house. So we're doing that. We did put some old kitty litter buckets in last year with
Full of
water to
water.
see if we get a little heat sink. They weren't translucent because some people do the translucent and then put the colored water in to try and capture more heat. I'm not sure how much heat they really captured and buffered.
Because it's supposed to help keep your heat for the overnight. Because you capture it during the day, and it's supposed to help keep
Well, it
hold,
goes and it's supposed to
hold the
then,
temperature.
yeah, both directions it
Yeah.
should buffer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that was highly effective with those particular buckets.
They were also white buckets, so I mean,
Yeah.
if you painted them black, you might absorb more heat and store it. I'm not. Yeah. Those were just, throw some water in kitty litter buckets and throw them out there and see what happens. But yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do to tweak. I mean, we had the video series and the summary from this time last year.
Yeah.
We did all of the construction and all of the architecture on it. So an ECM style frame. We did all the bends and bought separate hardware. So no kit. And we're shooting for $400. We were in the $500 range because we upgraded some of our door areas, and then we went ahead and did the double sheeting and other things. So, yeah, you can get a lot more sophisticated. You can put different membranes on that you can buy through some of the nice greenhouse sites that will really, really amp it up. But we just went real simple to see what we could get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's been quite successful for what we need.
Yeah.
Just to give us enough holding
and it gives us
space.
Gives us extended time. So I started seeds in there this last spring. Which really ended up being a great place to start seeds. It was right off the house, so easy to go out and work on that because I store the seeds in the house.
We left tomatoes and peppers until late in the season because we had such rain and cold. We just kept pushing them in there until they went outside.
Yeah.
Which gave them a little better chance.
Yeah. I mean, our season this year was just bad in general with all the rain we had for 2 months or 3 months in the spring, and then it dried out like crazy. But And we didn't have time in the garden either.
We really haven't used bubblers with any of our projects. No.
No. The bubblers being the bubble, what do you call it? Like the plastic wrap, or bubblers being what?
I was thinking for the water, but
yeah.
But actually, no, I'm not sure.
Because I know there's the bubble type of plastic wrap
you
too for
have
greenhouses.
the insulated those too. Yeah.
Hey Linda, and I should say hi to 13 Moons too, because both you just came in. We did leave one plant, or put one plant outside that's doing really well. This is a pecan tree that we were able to get. We got a bunch of pecan.
About 4 of them this spring.
But this is the only one that actually survived and took off, and it's doing really well. So we have it outside the greenhouse right now, trying to harden it.
So it went through that harsh winter in a big compost starter pile of like 100 or so pecan starts. Yeah. They were given away. There was a lot of them. And it turned out, and we only had 1 of the 4 take. And we're like, well, you know, not great. We should have had at least half of them take. Turns out the person who had been raising them, these are, I think may have been almost 2-year starts.
Yeah.
He lost half to 3/4 of his everything. So
from last winter,
from that really hard winter. So we actually probably didn't get viable ones. And he was out and took a look at. So it took a while, and then it's taken off. The leaves have not yellowed or fallen. And because it's a northern cold hardy pecan, we want to make sure we keep it outside. It's already survived probably the worst of it. So we want to keep it nice and cold and let it be happy and cold, you know, kind of the most cold weather that a pecan can handle.
Yeah. So we were thinking about maybe putting hay bales around the pot.
Yeah, because the pot's more exposed to wind and stuff. I think maybe we have a couple of hay bales laying around. I think maybe we should protect it and maybe one of the corners and mount it with a bunch of hay.
Yeah. Wholesome Root says, I hope you can see
there's a few around here that I mean, there's a couple that are really, really large. And again, we've talked about it before. They yield a pecan that's about half the size of a commercial like Georgia pecan. Sweet, high quality. It's just small, but for personal use and for being this far north, it's a pretty good find. And a lot of people actually have no idea that there are some cold hardied pecans that have made it up this way. And
we're on the northern edge of it.
Yeah, the big one, and these have come off as some matured ones. So they're old farms, some are on some Amish farms. So they're old farmers that kind of babied them, but once they set in,
they do well.
They just hang in there. Yep. So
there are some other things we still kind of need to do. Like, I don't know if we will get to it this year, but these are the Jerusalem artichokes, some of them. We have some around the apple trees too. And we've had our first frost now, so we could potentially harvest a few roots. We'll probably let them
and you
grow.
can actually harvest them all the way as long as the ground is pliable.
Yeah.
I mean, like only half frozen, you can get a spade into it or get your hands in. Hardest part is a lot of times people now are digging them, you know, the day or two before, and they're digging in the cold soil or half frozen soil trying to pull them out, and their hands are freezing. But yeah, we may get in there and get a few of them out. There's a lot of them at the market right now too. We might let them sit one more year, but they're exploding, so they're gonna do well.
Rose, how many poopy diapers does Mike get to change? Correct answer is all of them. Well, the milk poops aren't that bad.
I've been changing some most every day, not as many as Cindy. I'm really busy trying to get caught up and keep up with fall activity with my business. It will slack at some point, but right now I got a little bit behind with birth and been trying to push hard to get. I have a lot of orders that are sort of due, and I need to get them filled like real quick so they're not late. So I've been pretty tied up on that, and with Cindy home for a couple of months, I'm trying to continue to clear my schedule so that the winter is a little slower.
Adjustments. Okay. I'm trying to okay. I'd take one bale and cut a hole in it to fit the pot.
I mean, we've got some big commercial bales. Half a bale would be great, but that's not a bad idea. Take a chainsaw and just cut a hole or pull the middle straw out.
Yep.
And the way these were held was a combination of like 2 or 3 year old leaf compost, and I think some straw all mounded up in like a wooden frame
Mhm.
above ground, and so it's a mulchy, composty, protected bed. And that's how they're designed for, and they're deep
Yeah.
enough because he does pecans and chestnuts and a few
And
things as starts.
the frame is, oh, startle. The frame is kind of an interesting thing that has the wood around the sides, but on the bottom he has like hardware cloth, and he
Uh-huh.
puts the compost and soil in that and grows the trees from that because as soon as the roots hit the air, they stop growing down. So it does prevent big taproot because if you're going to be transplanting them, you don't want to break the taproot. So it
Yeah.
prevents it from developing a very big taproot until you finally get it into the ground
Yeah, so it
itself.
doesn't, so
Yeah,
it's not going into the ground with that loose straw and leaf compost. It's rich and it's protective, but it's
yeah,
also loose enough that you can pull out
pull it apart.
nice thin sleeves of it and
Yeah.
pack them for the next step of growing.
Um, I just watched. Wait, I watch. Just turned 3-year-old church. Each week she has started telling me the dolls have pooped. Yeah, I make her change the dolls' pretend diapers. Yeah, that's good practice. Um, the diapers don't get bad unless they have a blowout. Well, they're also not stinky until they're on solid food. So that will be a little while.
Mhm.
They get, I mean, they're messy, but they're not stinky. So that's the part that I don't like is the stinkiness. Um, yeah. So at this point, there's for those of you guys who don't have kids, it's milk poop. Milk poop is not too bad. Um, okay, so going back and forth, I think those are all the project
Oh,
things.
Helix.
Helix is trying to get on, I think he wants on laps, but he went onto the desk. Helix likes to get jealous. He doesn't pay attention to the baby. He just wants on a lap when someone's holding the baby. So we got cattails in the picture here. The tar poopies were the worst. Yeah, the meconium, first 3 days or so. I don't think those were too bad. But again, they didn't stink. They're just kind of gross. Um, Helix. Anyway, so we have that. We have um. Well, we could get. Should we switch from poop to food?
Sure.
Um, we have the Ask the Chef section. I don't know if you guys have any questions about cooking, but last week we actually had a picture of pork shoulder that you
Mhm.
made. And this is round
So
2.
we had a pig. We had a pig that uh, we purchased from Pratt Family, who have a nice YouTube channel, who most of
Yeah.
you probably know about. They're within an hour and a half from us. So we got one of their excess pigs last year, and still had a lot of it left. And so I had a pork shoulder, skin-on pork shoulder that we had broken down in some of our videos. My parents were here, so we did a traditional roast on that. It came out really nice. But even with the 4 of us, there was a lot left. So we had some like traditional leftovers, and then I think it was Monday or Tuesday this week. I took some bread and I just kind of griddled some slices in a cast iron pan, some cheese, some mustard, and sort of like pseudo Cuban sandwich, but we didn't quite go all the way that way. So made a little grilled sandwich. Oh, we used the classic trick. I don't know how many of you know you can mayonnaise your bread instead of butter your bread when you grill it, and it works just as well and actually probably better than mayonnaise. I mean, better than butter. So
For like grilled cheese or for
yeah,
this.
grilled cheese or anything that you're toasting, you can, if you don't have butter, you can swap it with mayonnaise.
That sounds good. And then we did have a round 3 on the pork too. We had pork and bean soup
Yeah, and then
as
I
well.
made, I had some,
There's a mosquito in here.
yeah,
How are you surviving outside?
it's a gnat or something, I don't know,
No.
whatever it is. Yeah, so I had some Dapple Gray Heirloom organic beans from Shadyside Farm.
Mhm.
Soaked those, threw them in the crock pot, and then after they went for a while, I put in, we had roasted vegetables with that pork roast. Traditional onion, carrot, celery. I had some potatoes and some small cherry tomatoes that all roasted down, made it real nice. So we ended up I chopped those up just roughly, threw them in towards the last hour of cooking. I had the pork bone in there from the beginning and some chicken stock, and then put in a bunch of the diced up pork. So it was sort of like a traditional white bean and ham soup, except for it wasn't cured ham. It was just the roasted pork, the vegetables, which would have been in there one way or another for the roasted vegetables. So that came out really nice. We got quite a bit.
And this is funny, the question that just came up, because I believe Curie asked this question
Somebody asked the same question last week. Clearly, you're not attending weekly.
No, you don't have to.
We made French onion soup last week also, or the week before. We had pictures up of traditional French onion soup.
Yeah.
And so that's my recommendation. 50 pounds of onions will yield about 40 pounds of clean sliced onions. Get a huge pot or roast them in a big roaster in your oven. Take a lot of time, get them really, really dark. We did go through more details on this last week. Use some chicken stock, beef stock, vegetable stock. Finish your soup up. It will come down to much less volume than you would think. And so when I do French onion soup for a restaurant, I usually do 50-pound bag or 100-pound bag of onions in a brazier, so a flat griddle with sides. So my average batch, that'll yield me like 8 gallons or something, because we work in 4 and 5 gallon leftover buckets frequently for storage. So yeah, I think 100 pounds yields me 8 gallons or less.
Yeah.
So 50 pounds, 3-4 gallons. You can definitely then go through, can it or quart it and freeze it. The work is in caramelizing the onions and taking that 30 or 40 minutes to really work the onions down. The rest of it goes fast. And doing a large batch, other than cleaning and peeling and cutting your onions, you can run those to a slicer if you want.
Mm-hmm.
The work is pretty much the same. I mean, you got to bring it to a boil, but you can make a whole lot of soup almost as easily as you can make a small amount. And in fact, making too small amount is pretty hard because they dehydrate and burn before you get that really dark caramelization. So I wouldn't make less than a half a gallon or a gallon of French onion soup just because of the work
it takes
and the quality. So white bean, ham, and kale, yeah, we love that.
Yeah, Rose said, sounds interesting. Does it work okay with homemade mayo?
Yeah, so mayonnaise is what, 80%, 90% oil, your choice of whatever oil it may be. Now, if you're using an olive oil, you can get a little of an olive oily flavor that you may or may not want. But if you're using a neutral vegetable oil of your choosing, it's got lemon juice or white vinegar. It's got sometimes a little mustard, sometimes a little white pepper or black pepper, some salt. And if you put anything else in there, it's in there. But so you've got a pretty neutral flavor. So you don't get the oleic acid or the buttery flavor, but and the egg proportion is very small. So when you take a creamy mayonnaise, it will stick onto bread. It will hold for the sear, and then it will melt. It'll break the emulsion when it gets too hot, and it'll start to melt. And now you've got an interface of oil to the pan and the heat into the bread, which will cause a real nice even browning. There isn't the same amount of water. There's a very small amount of water from your lemon juice or vinegar and egg, but there is less water than butter. Butter has about 10% milk solids and water. Mm-hmm. So when you create steam, things get soft. So you actually can get a crispier crust with mayonnaise, and if you look dairy-free, it could be, you could use a vegan mayonnaise if you wanted to.
That's a very crispy crust on that.
Yeah, and you slather it on pretty thick, and everyone's like, it's gross. But, it's no different than putting oil in the pan or putting butter in the pan because it is mostly oil.
Yeah.
You can actually do really cool things like slather it all over chicken breasts, which tend to dry out, and then you can use it to press your crust, like a cracker crumb crust for pan frying or like oven baking. It will glue and stick on your crust. You can also flavor it with any other types of spices or herbs in it, like an aioli if you want to enhance it. So it's an old European thing. I worked with a bunch of Austrian guys and other people that always, would add a mayonnaise base. Real stiff mayonnaise like chicken. And you'll see this in the old 70s recipes with shake and bake style breadings. as it cooks, for whatever reason, it allows chicken breast, which can tense up and get very dry, to become extremely tender and moist.
Mm.
And you do get that light mayonnaise flavor. And then any other flavor that you've introduced. It will also help carry flavor through that fat matrix from and seasoning from your crumb, whatever's in your crumb, into the meat itself.
Yeah.
Old Trek, people have really stepped away from it. They're like, it's gross. It really works, and it's not gross once it's all cooked.
Okay, going back to the French onion soup. What is the best cheese?
Well, that's debatable. So traditionally, French onion soup from France would be done in the countryside in the north, and so they would probably use things like Gruyere, which is in the Swiss cheese family. So it's got that particular, but it's a longer aging on it. So they would use Gruyere. In Switzerland, there's a cheese called Emmentaler, which is in the same category. It's Swiss, but the Swiss don't call it Swiss cheese.
Oh.
But Emmentaler is a regional cheese. You can easily get it here. It's only medium priced for fine cheese. You can get different levels of aging on it, but it's a really nice one. Comte is a French cheese. It's also heavily aged. That's what we happen to use. Well, we use an American or a Wisconsin version that was very similar. But Comte, also hard-aged, sort of Swiss funky cheese. So those give you a rich, earthy flavor. Parmesan is a little too, it's a little too hard. It doesn't melt real well. So some people will do a grind of Parmesan or a blend of Parmesan and Swiss. Some people will put some mozzarella on top. Mozzarella is really not your traditional. People like stringy, at least the American palate likes the stringy mild. We actually put a little bit on the top the first night because I had it laying around. That was the only reason. But you can use something like a Swiss or a Gruyere that's a little stronger and funkier, and then you can, and then you could finish with a stringier cheese like Munster or mozzarella, but it's really kind of mild. You could even use, like an aged Swiss, a sharp white Swiss, or something like that. So it's really up to you. But it should be pungent, a little acidic, and really balance the richness and sweetness. Because traditional onion soup, you create all the caramelization of the onions, but it also frequently has brandy or apple cider or whiskey or something in it that creates more sweet flavors. So this brings some balance. In the northern parts of France, I think like up in Limousin is where they have a lot of apples, and there's some other areas where. But in French countryside, you would get a huge crock, a crusty, thick, possibly toasted bread or butter toasted bread. Might be a day old or 2 day old, even like kind of a hard baguette, submerged in there, and then the cheese on top. It is a meal in itself. It's hearty for the cold fall, damp weather. It's inexpensive. It's food you probably had around your house or a pub, someplace you might have stopped into. So it's a working man full lunch, and you wouldn't necessarily order anything else with it. I see a lot of places putting provolone on, partly because they can take that round provolone and put it over the traditional French onion crock that sits over the top, and it can kind of sort of seal and get all bubbly, and they do it for show. I don't think it's bad at all, and it's kind of that middle ground. Mild, so picante provolone or the sharp provolone is even better, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that any cheese has to be done, but a Swiss style Emmentaler Gruyere is probably is going to be your traditional, and then anything else that you've got that you like is going to be fine. But so you think about you've got an earthy, inexpensive, maybe a touch of brandy in there, a little white wine or something in the soup. It's sustaining. It's usually made with beef stock or veal stock or a blend of stocks. Most restaurants don't do that anymore. The good places, a lot of them that I worked at actually still did, which made it a lot more expensive. So you get all the collagen, and a chicken stock's great. Brown chicken stock's preferred, or any brown stock. A blonde stock is still, you've got all the nutrients, the collagen, the onions, the herbs, the heavy cheese, which is protein and fat, the bread, which is carbs, and you're really creating a hearty, complete meal. So yeah.
So, and by the way, I did want to mention to Suburban Hillbilly, don't worry about the autocorrect. I can usually figure out what you're writing anyway. Um, 13 Moons, saw someone made onion jam somewhere. Never heard of it before. Curie said she has a recipe for one, but hasn't used it yet.
Yeah, onion jam has again become popular, so there's a whole lot of...
I've seen it at the market. Some of the jam makers, yeah.
A lot of people do a sweet. They cook it down and they kind of do a sweet or very sweet. In fact, it can have a lot more sugar and other things in it than onions in some versions. You can do like the jalapeno. It's similar to like a jalapeno jelly that's a sweet and spicy. There are ones that are more cooked down and caramelized. So there's a lot of, you'll find a lot of different recipes. The one thing I'll tell you, be careful on, you have almost no pH. It's almost neutral on onions. And they're coming from the ground. So that is one of the jams that you want to make sure you acid stabilize it, because it is not necessarily a safe jam by the fruit product itself if you're doing long hold canning.
And it's a ground.
Yeah, it's in the ground, which is where botulism comes from. Things that come out of the ground potentially. So, but it's very much like an apple butter type thing or a spread. You can make it spicy, you can make it peppery, you can make it sweet. Some people put a bunch of vinegar in it, so it's more of like a relish, and it would be used as a garnish. So yeah, it's tasty. Any of those ways, when made properly, is tasty and very usable.
Yep. Curie says she has a cookbook with a recipe for Swiss cheese.
So Swiss cheese is an interesting cheese because it actually has yeast in it. It's a fungal bacterial combination cheese. It's the only one of our traditional cheeses that are that way. That's part of the reason it may have holes in it, is because of the yeast activity, which gives off gas. Typically, if you have holes in cheese, it's a negative sign, and you would get poor markings when it's graded if you had lots of holes. But Swiss is the exception. Some, not all Swisses. Emmentaler Gruyere usually doesn't have holes. Emmentaler sometimes has some, but doesn't have to. So, yeah.
And Rose says she would not can it, only refrigerate the onion jam. But
yeah, I mean, if you're not going to stabilize it, pH stabilize it, I wouldn't can it for sure. Yeah, refrigerating it for a few weeks or until you see mold develop or whatever would probably be the preferred. And that's why when people do the sweet and sour, if they can it, it's because they can stabilize it. So in Michigan, the cottage law allows for you to sell homemade jams made out of your kitchen. This is one of those jams they do not allow because they only allow high acid fruit jams. So apple butter, any vegetable product, including tomato, which is odd, but the pH is a little bit lower, but it is a fruit. But it has to be a high acid, so you're talking basically berries and such. So no apple items, no onion items, no pepper jams, no compotes, no chow chows. Any of those things they don't allow cottage law because they want to have a full protocol for it. And you can sell it if you have a full canning license. So
yeah, you have to get the approval for it.
It's a lot more work. So you will see a lot of farmers markets, people trying to sell onion jams and pepper jams and things, apple butters because they're popular, tomato, cooked down tomato spreads, but they are totally, and they don't inspect very often, like once a year, but they're totally going to get you for that and take them from you or make you pull them off your sales list.
And Suburban Hillbilly just opened cowboy candy she made. Yeah, that's been a popular thing I've seen. I've never tried it, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely popular right now.
But, okay. And Curie has a cheese cookbook. That sounds good.
I have not made a lot. I mean, I made fresh cheeses and quick cheeses. I wish I had more time. Sausage.
In the cellar to put it.
Sausagemaker.com, which I buy some of my curing items from there out of New York. They sell quite a number of cheese making supplies for small batch home cheese stuff. So kits and cultures, if you want a specific culture, presses for salting and pressing. I think they have curd cutters and a variety of other things. But yeah, there's a new device that I keep getting. I just launched about 2 or 3 months ago. I keep getting posts for it and emails. It's sort of like the beer machines and the bread machines. It's an all-in-one cheese maker. So you put in the type of milk, you set the settings, you put in a culture that you would buy a prepared culture, and it goes through a timed, managed cheese production. I think it's $300. It makes, I'm going to tell you it's really a hobby because you're not going to make enough to make it save you money, that's for sure. I also am not sure how unique and great the cheeses are going to be. It's a neat idea. And then you still would have to go through any form of aging process if you wanted anything other than their fresh cheese. I think it will do the pasteurization and all the rest. So it's a really neat idea. I don't have my hands on one. I'm not planning on buying one, but they're giving away. I did throw my name in to see if I got a free one, but didn't come my way.
No.
Somebody in Michigan won it though. Somebody in the Detroit area won one of them.
Okay. Some cheese is a lot of work. Some are easy. Yep.
Yeah, I mean some things like ricotta, super easy.
Yeah.
A ricotta made from a whole milk, not from a whey. But yeah, it's breaking it, heating it, straining it, and potentially pressing or salting it. Cottage cheeses, yogurts, and our fermented dairies are really quite easy. You need to work clean. You need to know what you're doing and be careful, but they're not difficult. Once you're getting into aged cheeses, a little bit different story. Even goat cheeses, you can make pretty easily, and you can even begin to do a nice aging because they age quickly. Most of them age quickly, so.
Yeah. So, yeah, happy baby sleeping on mama. She is complete curled up in a ball. I don't want to move. I'm not gonna make her wake her up here. But complete like froggy style on me here. But yeah, she likes to sleep like this basically. She's almost out enough I could probably put her down, but not. That's what I have to do is wait until she's oh no, she's waking again. Wait until she's completely out to be able to set her down. Otherwise she wakes up and crying, upset.
Yeah, I agree with Rose, and that's why we regularly talk about
yeah,
canning and being careful. And if you go on, almost all the state ag sites either have full protocols for all your pickling, brining, curing, making sausages, cheeses, or they'll link you to other ag sites in the USDA for approved protocols. Most of them aren't worth messing it up and getting really, really sick. And then again, because I professionally cook, I take a little bit more care. I don't have a lot of liability on it, but I don't want to lead anybody the wrong way.
Yeah.
You can take a little more liberty at home or when you know what you're doing, but there are chances. And the problem is people are like, well, we've always done it that way. Well, you just got lucky.
Yeah.
And I go through classes with the state, and they tell us briefs and they tell us the horror stories, partly to scare us, but also say, hey, they're really out there. And the different things that are going on are prevalent right now.
Yeah.
And so it only takes one time. So yeah, we don't mess around with them much. It's not worth it.
So Rose says, friend makes aged hard goat cheese all the time. Does the market neighbor make hard goat cheese or just soft?
She pairs with a dancing goat.
She has a goat farm and makes goat pudding.
Yeah, so dancing goat makes fresh and semi-aged. The other woman who I am next to in the winter, she does a number of ages. She has a full certified cheese manufacturing processing. So she does goat or sheep. Goat, and she gets cow. She gets cow milk from a organic farm down the road, which is really tasty. They do some aged things and some washed rind, which are pretty good. I know a lot of people that also do goat, and a lot of the goat tomes and things. The nice thing is you can buy the little rounds or little. You can self-age them. You can leave them in their little box and leave them in your extra refrigerator where maybe it was full of produce during the year. You can do it in your home fridge, but there's a lot going on in there, so they may not come out great. And you can just let them sit for 2 or 3 weeks. We do that a lot at restaurants where we actually buy stuff in advance. A good cheesemonger or merchant will hold them, and you'll see the different variations of shrinking goat cheeses, especially. And they'll hold them back for customers, or you're like, I want a young one, I want an aged one. But you can do that yourself, and that's what good restaurants have done. is you buy early. It's like wine. You hang on to them, but you don't hang on to them for years. And you watch them, and they're living, so you serve cheese when it's perfect. So we don't see this a lot, but some of the good French restaurants and things, they'll feature a cheese cart. And a lot of places have gone from having 6 or 8 or 10 things to having like 2 items. And their cheesemonger, whoever sends them to them, or the person in charge of their program will say, this is what's perfect to eat right now. We're offering these 2 items if you're interested. And so they have gone to that sort of perfect maturing. Once you start getting a lot of ammonia coming off of them, that's a pretty good indication they're at the end, or they've gone over the edge, and they're not getting any better, and they're pretty getting gross, or they're getting secondary mold and things, and they don't want that. They break down, get a little slimy or soft in the middle or on the edges. Maybe an okay part of aging. So Boucheron is one of the best sort of known and premier goat cheeses. It's a big log. It's about 3-4 inches. They're usually about this long. The French ones are very expensive. Even the U.S. one, I think Belgioso makes a nice U.S. one. There's somebody that does a really good one we used to buy. It was still like $70 or $90. So they would traditionally come wrapped in a little mat that looks like straw, but now it's a plastic looks like a little sushi rolling mat, and we would leave it in there because it comes pretty fresh or with some age on it. We would leave it in there for a month, 6 weeks sometimes. So we'd have a number of them sitting, which is a lot of money holding. And we would, and it gets an outside mold, sort of like a Camembert white mold, which is an edible mold. And then you can watch as it breaks down, the mold starts to eat the nutrients of the cheese. The outside will become kind of grayer and soft, and the middle will be sort of firmer. And as it goes more and more, you'll have it shrink, but you'll also have it become more and more creamy till the outside's really kind of breaking down. We cut a slab of that, stick it in the toaster oven just to warm it up, and then usually do it with like a goat cheese and hazelnut, or or macadamia nut or something like that salad. And that's probably one of the most famous aged goat cheese, I'd say. Belgioso is a very good quality, generally very reasonable cheese everywhere. But if Costco carries different items, they're pretty aggressive in their pricing because of their volume. But yeah, Belgioso is a Wisconsin. I've actually worked with some of their staff, their Wisconsin staff, and their New York reps have done educations, and I'm friendly with one of them. They are amazingly good quality cheese done in an Italian style, a little bit more modern way, but Italian cheeses. So I was always like, yeah, they're American cheeses for a long time. And then we really got into them and did tasting and saw some of the specialty things. And it really changed my mind that Belgioso, when you can't get a premier import cheese, which sometimes is going bad already or it's just too expensive, it's inappropriate for what you're doing or your budget. I really love Belgioso's products. Their fresh mozzarella is pretty good, and their burrata, which is about that big, is like $3 or $4 versus $10 for the Italian import one that has about 3 days shelf life if you caught it right. It's not nearly as nice as the one being flown in from Rome, but it's awfully good, and for a third of the price, and that it lasts like 3 weeks, and it's always going to be good. It's a go-to, and you'll find that one floating around a lot more in national stores. So
you have 2 questions, other cooking questions.
So
how do you cook bison steak when it's about 3/4 inch thick?
That's thick, but it's barely thick enough to get a good sear on it. So I would use a cast iron pan or your heaviest steel pan or heavy pan, uncoated. Get it hot enough where you put oil in, or a little bit of oil in towards the end. Get it hot enough that it's smoking fairly heavily, but obviously not bursting into flame. And I would pan sear it, so you can let it. You can season it a little bit right before you put it in the pan. The problem with putting salt on a pan or on meat is it'll draw moisture out and cause it to get kind of wet. So I would season it right before I'm ready to use it. Really hot pan. Sear both sides, probably a minute and a half on each side at most. And that's it. Put it on a plate. maybe melt some fresh butter over it or something. Or you can put a little dash of Worcestershire sauce, Worcestershire sauce sometimes. Bison tends to be leaner than beef, which means to keep it tender, you want to keep it undercooked. Ideally, medium rare is going to be probably how it eats best. Rare is fine. Medium is okay. Anything beyond medium is going to almost guaranteed be dry, and you're going to be unhappy with the effort and money you put into the bison steak. So yeah, cast iron sear would be put it on like a little rack, like a cookie rack, and leave it in your refrigerator opened for about 2 days. So the natural dehydration and enzymatic and biological activity that happens in your refrigerator will begin the process similar to dry aging. Now, dry aging is 21 to 60 days, but even those 2 days of dehydration will change the structure and how it cooks, and will markedly take a okay steak into a much better it will do a surprisingly large amount in 2 days of just leaving it open in your fridge, if you can take the time to do that.
Next question. Have filet mignon thawing in the fridge for tomorrow night. Should she sous vide it?
Is it steaks like 4-ounce or 6 or 8-ounce steaks, or is it like a chateau or a whole filet tenderloin? Well, you're telling me that. I am going to tell you. So tenderloin is the most tender, largest muscle in that we use for steaks. It's extremely expensive because they're about 6 pounds on each side, or about 12 pounds on a 600-pound animal. It isn't the most flavorful. It's low flavor. It's beefy, but it's low flavor compared to other cuts. And it's already super tender, so as long as, again, you don't overcook it. Filet is best served medium rare. It's awesome rare if you enjoy rare. It's fine medium. And because it's so tender and it's got very, very little fat, it'll dry out. It's not
4 ounce.
4 ounces. Okay, so they're little petites or yeah, like medallions. So yeah, they dry out, they don't have a lot of fat, and they have limited flavor. So if you undercook them, they're not very appealing. I mean, if you overcook them, they're not very appealing. My recommendation when they're 4 ounces is the same thing. Cast iron pan sear them. Season them aggressively, pan sear them. You can do things because they're low fat, like the wrapping them in bacon or melting butter or blue cheese over the top, because you're adding fat and adding flavor, which is the one area it's lacking. Traditionally, tournedos, by the way, a lot of people think a tournedos, it requires 2, which is commonly served on a plate. It's actually 1. 1 is fine. It doesn't mandate 2. But they would typically serve on top of a crouton. So a piece of thick, like white bread or brioche that was usually dipped in butter or clarified butter and carefully pan-seared crispy, a little bit crispy, a little brown, and it was placed on top of that. It does 2 things. It makes the small steak that's precious and expensive look a little bigger. It also means that the juices that flow out flow into that bread, and that buttery, rich bread, when you cut into it and eat it with the steak, is again helping to make up for a little bit of limitations in fat. So think about adding fat in wonderful ways. Some of the rich sauces that have bone marrow or foie gras or other things are all common. So filet is rare, it's tender, it's easy to work with, and it's sort of neutral, which is why traditionally chefs use it. But I would pan sear it. You could sous vide it. It's fine. I mean, you can sous vide. You could lightly season it, bag it, sous vide it. I would bring it to about 119, 125. It will sous vide in 30 minutes, probably. I have to check my temps, and 30 minutes or so. Pull it out, pat it dry, re-season it, and sear it real hard. That works. And the difference on that is you'll have pink almost from top to bottom and crust on the ends. If you pan sear it from all the way from the beginning, you'll have more of a gradation with a little less pink on the edges. It will be a sous vide filet can be quite soft If you don't like a slightly mushy, sous vide can enhance that. So that can be a detractor for some people. But it is an appropriate method. Some people actually cook them in oil. They've done like basically sous vide in oil. Or they'll put a couple of drops of truffle oil in the bag and they'll sort of infuse it. Another thing you can do with steaks, which is a really neat way to do it, we tend to do this all or nothing, really high heat, crust and sear it on a grill or a pan. We time it in such a way with flipping it a couple of times that we reach our temperature in the middle, and then we rest it for 5 or 10 minutes and we put it on a plate and serve it. An alternative to doing that is take your steak out an hour or two before you're ready to serve it, put it on the counter, let it warm up, keep the dog away from it, get away from it, and let it warm up to room temperature. Put it in the oven at like 175, about as low as your oven goes, and a thick steak, like a 2-inch steak. Leave it there for an hour or so. If you have a barbecue thermometer that you can plug in and put it on a digital where it'll have continuous reading, let it come up to, just about, again, that 119, 120 range, that rare, sub-rare range. And then you can pan sear it, or you can crank the heat up, like broil it, take it out and broil it. So that's a method that some steakhouses started using a number of years ago. And you'll see in Argentina and places, real long, low oven cooking. And so what that does is you get the same type of even gradation in your color. And you also kind of get a bathing of heat where I think there's a lot of enzyme activity. There's a lot of meaty flavors that get to all do their thing. And then you blast it with heat at the end just to crust it. So it's sort of modified. I have done that in restaurants and at home. You need to preset them to be able to do that. But I've cooked beef like that. It comes out wonderful. You can find protocols for that online very easily.
So they're saying you have a lot of information. And Curie said there used to be a deputy in the county who ate his steaks raw, just threw them in the freezer for a few minutes and served it.
Yeah, people.
That's too raw for me.
I mean, I don't mind a tartare from a really good quality beef or venison or whatever.
Yeah, I have had tartare
high
before.
quality, typically been frozen.
Yeah.
You treat it like sushi. It's the best quality. It's not been mishandled. It's not old. Maybe you froze it to make sure you get a little kill on it. Chop it up and make tartare, which is then mixed with, spices and herbs and sometimes capers or egg yolk. And eating raw meat to eat raw meat, people do that because people thought it was good for like bodybuilding. People did it because they thought it intimidated people and showed their toughness. I don't think chopped steak, people would eat raw burger. That was popular going back into the early 1900s. But you're talking like steak quality, grind it fresh right here, and which is what you do with tartare. Either grind it or cube it, and then you serve it right away. I don't see a lot of culinary purpose to that beyond a classical tartare preparation. Yeah, I think it's more for show.
Ryan just went out in the cold dark night to pick a plantain leaf for a bad bite he has. We have tons of plantain leaves out here, out back, definitely. So yeah, a lot of people don't like the raw or rare meats. I like it usually a little pink inside.
I would say most of American cuisine prefers medium to medium well. It's tradition and history, basically because we ate a lot of wild game. We farm and people didn't want to get sick. So the official USDA, FDA says cook your meat to 155, your ground meat, or 135, your ground meat, stuffed meat, and other things to 165. That's your safest. As a chef, that is not the best way to present your meat. That probably goes beyond opinion. That goes to how does it taste and present well. Now, do you prefer it rare? Do you prefer it medium? That's fully your opinion. There are certain low fat items that will get tough. That's why I'm saying cooking medium rare, and rare can, on a culinary end, be the best method. But if you don't like it, there's no reason we can't cook it all the way. Or we can long sous vide it or do different things. You lose some nutrition when you long cook. You don't gain tremendous amount of nutrition when you eat it raw or rare. Part of the reason, and whole muscle is your best thing. If you like rare red meat is whole muscle, because when you grind it, any surface contaminations get mixed to the middle and they don't come up heated. The reason we might sear something is we can actually sear that outside and get a good kill on it. Meat is still biologically active. It's not exactly alive, but it's biologically alive, and it's antiseptic. So meat has to be extremely, extremely degraded or really penetrated and damaged before that inner meat is actually going to harbor most of your pathogens. It's on the outside. That's why ground and burgers always a thing, and stew meat that's always getting in trouble. And steaks are a lot cleaner, and that's again why you can eat them rare with less concern.
I agree with with Rose. I don't go all the way rare, but I go like medium rare most of the time.
Depends on the cut for me.
Yeah, it
Yeah, they're
depends.
definitely like I'll eat a rare fillet. Again, it depends on the quality and how thick it is. I don't like a rare ribeye.
No.
It's too mushy. It's flopping all over the place. So, and I don't mind eating medium rare or medium either. I am not a big fan of eating medium well in a high quality cut. I just feel like I've lost some of the quality. I'd rather go have like a short rib or something.
Yeah. So I did want to, and I think the questions on cooking are coming to end here, but I did want to bring up one thing that I heard, and anybody in the abundant permaculture Justin Rhodes premium membership did hear today. They were supposed to do a premium membership live show tonight. It got canceled. So for those of you guys, I don't know if he posted it anywhere else yet, but if you want to go give condolences, his father died today. So I just wanted to mention it to you guys in case you guys wanted to reach out at all to the Rhodes. I found reaching out through Instagram. Actually, Rebecca gets back a lot of times, but
yeah, I mean they
they
have obviously hundreds, thousands of people.
Oh
but,
yeah,
but there are people that they're closely in contact with, and or luck of the draw, they're so.
So I'm not sure if that's going to affect their video scheduling at all. I hope they take some time for themselves. I would think they would, but just wanted to let you guys know because that news just came through today. His dad has not been doing well for a while. So, and we've met his dad a couple times.
We did.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Got to cook for his dad last year.
Yeah, yeah.
He came by at least one of our, I think both of our
Both
buffets.
times, yeah.
He was excited. I think it was the second time because so we put out big spread from the butchering classes, and so definitely got to meet him. He was around the property at different times, and he was slowing down and having some medical hardships. I think especially in March. I had been in the hospital a little bit, but he was definitely not.
He was up and active still.
I mean he quickly degraded.
Yeah.
So
yeah, unfortunately. So yeah, it was faster than expected. I think they were told 1 to 2 months. I think Justin kind of had a clue that he was going downhill faster than that, though.
They knew that.
So yeah. Yeah, I messaged Rebecca earlier through Instagram, and she actually must have been on at the moment she got back to me right away. But yeah, they had only given him a couple months. But from the point where they posted that was a public video. We're talking it was days since that. So wanted to let you guys know I'm sure they will make more. He'll probably, knowing them, he'll probably put together a video on
I'm
his
sure it
dad.
won't be that long. I'm sure they've got a bunch of things going on for this week. But not that they don't have some videos that are kind of in process already, but yeah.
Yeah, he did say his goodbyes on the vlogs and stuff. So everybody knew about how sick his dad was. But just a FYI out there in case they slow down this week on their own videos and such. Oh, what are we doing? We're lifting our head up and looking around. Okay. Justin didn't, yeah, exactly. When they left for the farm tour, he wasn't doing well, and then he seemed to rebound
and then he did
a
much
bit.
better,
Yeah. So I believe he had cancer, but I'm not sure exactly. I think he was having some heart issues and other things at the end here too. But yeah, he was a very nice man. So just not to end on a very sad note, but I know that what came out today. So
and then kind of one other thing that's not fully done yet, but we're seriously thinking about doing some meat fabrication classes, which there's been workshops here this winter probably 1 or 2. I'm thinking. No dates yet. I did acquire a really nice meat grinder this week that I've been keeping my eye out for. So I have a small one, but now I have a crazy big one that's really nice. So that was one piece of equipment I needed that was bigger. So we are looking at doing probably a 1-day seminar, likely a Saturday, and maybe as early as mid-late January, and then probably either repeating or doing a different seminar in either February or March. Tentatively, we're going to do something on breakfast, preparing the meat items that would be associated with breakfast. So making sausage, bacon, possibly Canadian bacon or English bacon rashers. I don't have it all worked out. I know I have the format. The idea being that's the most usable thing. So it's mostly pork driven. It may not be all pork driven. But people tend to do a lot with pork. Pork is inexpensive. It's accessible. It's easier to work with. But breakfast is secured, and ground items we eat the most, and people kind of cherish the most. I like them actually. They're probably not my most favorite, but they are.
In person or online?
It will be an in-person.
We'd probably video.
We would probably video portions of it. Yeah. I don't think it would be instructional video, but
like a summary.
Format is it would take place here in my commercial kitchen. It would involve probably between 6 and 10 people maximum. So it's a very hands-on, very tailored to the people that show up. It would have myself, as well as at least one assistant who is another trained. I've got a couple of people around the area that are a trained chef or trained in doing these items, and we would teach the basics, which people tend to store away the most or you order the most.
You have the butcher do that for you.
Yeah, you have to do it. So we'll show you how to do it, how to case, how to link, how to do bulk, how to do patties, how to do, breakfast sausage or sage. You could do bangers or chipolitas, which are similar to bangers. How do you make your slab bacon? We might look at something. We could do something like souse or whatever. So the options we're looking at is an in-person. It's probably going to be $250 range for a 1 day. There is a possibility we may do a advanced class on a day 2 in one of those if we have enough people, where we actually move into some more complex things. And the other thing I'm kicking around is having the opportunity to do a buy-in, so that you would buy a portion of the meat that's produced, so that you could actually take it back with you. Because one of the hard things is you make these things, obviously we'd create a big lunch meal or an end of the day meal that would probably be a massive English Irish breakfast effectively. And just do it, some of the things aren't ready right away. Bacon takes about a week and other things, but provide a full manual packet and recipes. And then, but people that want to buy into actually taking a portion of that product back to them, and of course I can't sell it because I'm not a meat vendor. What you can do is you can buy we can buy the product just like you buy a hog and then they have it processed. We can buy the product in your name, and then
you're processing it.
You would be processing it, which also means some portion of it. If you hate sage breakfast sausage, because some people love it and some people can't stand it, you don't make sage breakfast sausage. We maybe make it, but portions of it. So we'd actually have some cut sheets, I believe, that we could set up and have some ideas of what you want to achieve, so that you would get either a share portion of it, and I'm not sure everybody would buy into that or not. That's probably going to be another $100 to $150, depending on, that's really dependent on the amounts of protein that are acquired. So we've been kicking this around for a while. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I need to format it out a little bit more, and we'll put out some posts. And so it'll be open, especially for people in our region, and really anybody else. So
anyone who wanted to come to the area.
The idea is we're not going to do live kill. I don't, what Justin does and what I've been able to do with him, we may do something like that in the future. I don't know. We're not a farm that does live animals, so I could bring a live animal, but we don't want to do that. We might actually break down a whole hog as a beginning process of this, if that's of interest, but it would come eviscerated, hung. And we have a local farm. We have a couple local farms, but I have a local farm that I believe he has really nice quality product, and I think we may source from him. So we could get commodity, but we could also get something that's a touch better and isn't going to cost a lot more on the pork end. But we would build those things up. And so my thought was, let's try to do something in a one day, because sometimes 2 days too much. Things get pricey. It becomes a lot of work on my end. I have a lot of work heading into it. I have a lot of work in the morning after things are done, cleaning it up. It's a huge activity. So could we take portions that are the most interesting and selectively do a 1 day or a 2 day? The follow up to that is we might do a second 1 day or 2 day class. I think we might do breakfast twice if it fills up. But I might do something else that's a more advanced class. This is like an intermediate class. It's professional level, but intermediate. We might do an advanced class or do something that involves some beef or some aging or hanging, things that aren't going to have immediate results on or making pâtés. And so we would piece out more detail on sections that we kind of hit when we did a full animal fabrication. But breakfast just seemed the least expensive, the most applicable, where a lot of times people go to classes and they enjoy it, and they either never intend to do it, they just do it to do it, and the experience, or they intend to do it, but they never do it. I think this is the thing that you could do the most likely at home, and you say, well, I'm gonna buy a pork shoulder, which is 15 pounds, and I'm gonna get a smaller grinder for $100, and I'm gonna go make my own sausage or 2 types of sausage regularly, and whether I put them in 1 pound tubes real easy, or I make little patties, cut patties, which are super easy, and you have full control. And the one thing that Justin noted, because he was kind of new to it, he's like, wow, I have total control over this. I watched the meat, I saw what it is, I made sure nothing nasty got in there, I control my fat a little bit, but I watched every spice. And if you eat, a lot of times they're buying a blend. They're not mixing their own blends. Almost none of them are anymore. They're buying commercial blends. They're scooping out the right amount for the pounds. They're throwing it in there.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if you want to control that,
we're
going to show you how easy and how inexpensive it is to control that process. And you can really make breakfast sausage, ground breakfast sausage for yourself once or twice a year. Pack away whatever amount you think is appropriate. I made a slab of bacon before we had family in September. I found a slab of bacon at the store that was pretty good price. I didn't save any money on it because it was about the same price as bacon, honestly.
But you can do it your way.
I was able to use a cure that I like and do a dry rub, all whole brown sugar and maple, and I was able to smoke it myself. And so I didn't make any money. It cost me some time, but I got super great level
13
bacon out of it.
minutes said if I would travel for, I'd like to do it at least 2 days. Thinking of daughter culinary, who's a culinary student.
And that's so when we did the road stuff, we did a 2 day and we did a 3 day.
You could have an option of 1 day and 2 day the same weekend.
Well, and that's sort of what I thought about, is doing in advance where we could go into a second day.
Yeah.
And these would all take place between January and the end of March.
Yeah.
That's my low period where I have a market going, but I can miss a market week and I'm not going crazy. So there may be, depending on, as we kind of put some ideas out there. So that's in the, I would say that's the unofficial announcement. We're officially
planning it.
90% certain we're doing something, and 90% certain that it's going to be breakfast cookery, if not others. We're open to ideas, and also those things like that. If you're traveling, that you'd like to spend more time doing something, or you really want to make sure you bring home 50 or 100 pounds of product, and you're bringing a cooler, and you want to detail out how that's going to happen. Or
let us know your feedback.
Or basically. You just want to sit in there, or that money's a huge concern, and that you at a price point that it's just not going to work. And we're like, okay, different budget, but. So I think I'd like to do that because that's things I do anyways. I'm professionally trained to do them. We have all the resources, and it would be a very, very hands-on to those 4, 6, 10 people, and trying to get as much out of it as sort of like we did with the roads. Okay,
awesome. So we'll let you guys know. We'll let you know how know how the ideas are developing and timing as that comes up.
And we also don't have a farm. We don't have accommodations. We're happy to work on
Helping people find.
There's some local things, but yeah, so people coming in from out of the area would be working on your own travel and arrangements. Although
there's some hotels.
We're happy to we would host the main meal through the days, and if we're not too wiped out in the evening, we may socially be excited to interact either here or somewhere else. Some days I like the big events. I have so much work. People are begging me to go out to dinner with them.
Yeah.
I said, I mean, I didn't tell them that, but I have 5 hours of work that I still need to do to get ready for the next class.
The road stuff, yeah.
I work 16 and 18-hour days when I do those butchering classes because there's a massive amount of setup and breakdown and a limited amount of people and sort of knowing what's going on because we don't do it every day. So we're trying to avoid we love doing those big classes, but we don't want to be, we don't want this to be that. So yeah, those are out there. We got a lot of the Michigan Hootenanny people. I've got a bunch of chef friends that actually haven't done a lot of this, but are really good chefs. Cooks, some of their cooks, there might be somebody that pops in, either to help or to sit in and learn something they don't know how to do.
Yeah, so. Airbnb, there's lots of those around.
Yeah, I mean, we've got
and it's off season in this area for that. At that time,
we're halfway between Detroit and Chicago, and we're a straight shot from Indiana, and so we're Southwest in a pretty Michigan. Good location for some people, not everybody, as far as getting in and out and doing things because we're actually right off of an interstate. So, yeah.
Okay, guys.
And I do have a licensed insured kitchen, which is why we can now do this.
Yes. So I have a commercial kitchen to do this in. Yeah, I guess that's it. If you guys have any feedback on that, feel free to send us Facebook messages or with questions or what your thoughts are on those types of workshops or what kinds of things you'd be interested in. Or email parttimepermies@gmail.com as well. And I check that all the time. I can always forward the messages to Mike so that he can know what we're talking about.
Yeah, so we're pretty flexible and open to how we might craft the details.
Yeah.
And we need at least 4 people.
Yeah.
And we definitely can't do more than 10, probably 8, somewhere between 4 and 8 is the ideal. So we will craft an event if there's a list. We will craft a date and event that makes it the most usable for the most number of people.
Yep. Yep, and otherwise we should say good night because our internet's been bouncing around and it is getting late. So thank you guys for sticking with us, and we will be back next week. If you have more questions, cooking questions, you can post those on our Facebook group as well if you're interested. But
start thinking about your Thanksgiving. We got those great videos on our holiday video from 2 years ago now, which could substitute for sort of traditional Thanksgiving or Christmas potentially. If you have questions or ideas or need ideas, start thinking about them. We love Thanksgiving. When I was in New York as a banquet chef, the chef I worked for, I would do Thanksgiving for 400 or 500 people, and he was like, "Man, you do like one of the best Thanksgivings." I'm like, "I don't know, it's Midwest Thanksgiving. I don't know what you guys do on the East Coast," and they do a great job. It's just a little different.
Yep.
So it's sort of one area that I do really well and know a lot of variety. So we're happy to chat Thanksgiving next week and.
Yeah, over the next couple weeks. Yep.
Or moving into the holidays.
And, I will say happy birthday one day early because it's his birthday tomorrow too. But otherwise, we will see you guys.
Don't forget to start your fruitcakes too.
Oh my gosh, yeah. See you guys next week. Have a good night. 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If any of you guys show up late, that's when we start. So talk to you guys later.
Have a good night.
Bye.